everyone, and welcome to Tamriel Journeys, an Elder Scrolls podcast. You are now listening to episode 0, which is basically an introductory episode into where this podcast plans to go in the future. I am Tony Z, your host, narrator, voice actor, sound effects guy, pretty much all of the above for future future episodes and subsequent episodes of this podcast. If you have not already heard the trailer on Spotify or your podcast platform of choice, Tamriel Journeys is going to be my podcast going forward, where I play each of the Elder Scrolls games, starting with Morrowind, and I will be going through each of them on my own. Each episode will be a different section of the game, I guess, that I'll be playing, but I will be writing down what's happening in the game in kind of my own original storytelling type of perspective. I'll be telling the story through my character's perspective, so I'll be doing my own sound effects, voice acting, stuff like that for different counters that I have in the game, and describing stuff almost as if it was like a journal or like a storybook from the perspective of my character. I recently thought about this idea because I've been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls Online and other Elder Scrolls games, and I just suddenly came up with the idea to try something like this. I thought it'd be a lot of fun because I used to write a lot of stories back in the day, and then I kind of fell away from it, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to be able to get into writing to a certain extent where I'll be telling the story of my character. So I'll be telling what's happening in the game basically, but I'll be talking as if I'm in the perspective of my character and almost doing it in a narration story type situation. I will maybe do a little bit of my own original storytelling mixed in there as well as I write certain things down and put things in my own perspective. Like maybe I'll come up with a backstory for my character, which I originally was going to do on this episode, but I didn't have enough time to write it down. So unless I randomly come up with a backstory for my character off the top of my head, this is what you're getting. A little bit about myself. I am 34 years old. I almost said 35, but that's not till next year. Well, not next year, but that's not till September. I am happily married to my wife, and my wife and I actually bonded through the original Morrowind game when it first released. So that was my first experience with Elder Scrolls, was Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, and I've played every Elder Scrolls game since then. I played through Morrowind and both of its expansions. I played through Oblivion and all of its expansions, and Skyrim and all of its expansions. And then I played a little bit of Elder Scrolls Online in the beginning. I couldn't really get into it as much at first, just because I was so into the single player Elder Scrolls that I wasn't really comfortable with how an MMO worked, because I'd never played an MMO before. So that was a little bit of a tackling experience, and then I kind of fell away from it for a long period of time, but I kept coming back and buying the new expansions and then just never finishing them. So when the most recent Blackwood expansion came out, I guess it was a few months ago now, I bought it on both my PC and my Xbox, and then once again I got distracted by other games and didn't come back to it. But within a week or so ago, I decided to dive back into Elder Scrolls, and I played the entirety of the storyline of the Blackwood expansion, and then started diving really back into the game, and I just fell immediately back in love with the universe and just remembered everything that drew me into Elder Scrolls to begin with. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're a fan of Elder Scrolls as well, and if not, then maybe let me know like in a comment or something, and maybe I'll give you a little backstory on Elder Scrolls, or you can Google it. I'm sure you'll find plenty of information there. But yeah, that's basically my introduction. I have a YouTube channel, which is Tony Z TV. Over there, I do gameplays, paranormal reactions, and taste test videos. I originally started that channel in 2019 under the name of Tonysaurus Rex, and then I tried numerous other channels and decided to come back to that channel, and then just kind of rebranded myself a little bit. So that's kind of where I do a lot of this stuff. I was planning on doing some Elder Scrolls Online or other Elder Scrolls games gameplays on the channel, and then I decided it would just be a fun experience to try out this kind of podcast with original storytelling. So season 1 will be starting with Morrowind. I will be choosing, I think the way I would want to do it is I want to pick a character starting with Morrowind, and I know Oblivion takes place 6 years after Morrowind, so I think what I'll do is the same character will cross between both of those games, and I will be doing the games and the entirety of their expansion, so that will all be included in each season. But I think season 1 and season 2 will be the same character, and then I know Skyrim takes place like 200 years after Oblivion, so maybe I'll do that as like an ancestor of the character, or start from a completely different character. So with Morrowind being in Vardenfell, which is the home of the Dark Elves, I will be choosing a Dark Elf for my playthrough of Morrowind. His name is Telonius Darkmoon, I haven't, like I said, I haven't really come up with a backstory for him yet, but I thought that was a really cool name for a dark elf. I'm probably going to give him maybe some kind of a dark backstory, because in the Elder Scrolls games, they kind of just throw you into the beginning of the game and they don't really talk much about your past. So I think some of the fun for me will be coming up with these original elements of the personality for Telonius Darkmoon and maybe some of his background. I wanted to come up with it on the spot. I don't know if I'll be able to. Maybe I'll tell a story that's similar to like Batman, where like his parents are murdered or something. Maybe he tracks down the murderer and kills them, and that's how he ends up on a prison ship on his way to Vardenfell. I don't know. Maybe maybe he's kidnapped at a young age and taken to some like island off the Gold Coast in Tamriel, and he is now journeying home to Vardenfell to figure out where he was originally from after escaping from the kidnapping. Either of those could be a very interesting backstory, but I don't want to dive too much into that because I'll probably fully flesh out a backstory and write it down for episode 1. I just wanted to do like a quick little episode. I don't know, this is probably like 5-10 minutes, just as an introductory into who I am and what I plan to do with this podcast. I think it'll be a lot of fun to creatively write some of these things and to do some of the sound effects. Well, I say sound effects, but it's not going to be like soundboard sound effects. It's going to be me doing like, say I shoot an arrow and it misses and twangs off a wall, then I'll probably do like a ding or something weird that sounds to me from my own voice like it's twanging off a wall. I'll do the best of my abilities. But yeah, if you're listening to this episode and you're interested in more, I plan on releasing episode 1 within the next week or so. Most likely I will be trying to do this podcast at least once a week, but if it becomes too much story, like writing out the story and playing the game and all that stuff, then it will be every 2 weeks, so it'll be a bi-weekly show. But just be on the lookout for that. I'll get more into that with episode 1. I'll see how I do with episode 1 and then decide going forward if I can do it every week or not, because I still work a full-time job and do 2 videos a week on YouTube, so it may need to be every 2 weeks. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening to this initial episode of Tamriel Journeys. Shout out to the I guess it was the website Epidemic Sound. That's where I got the intro song for this video, and as long as I have a subscription to that, it should be copyright free and I shouldn't be hit with anything. So I just need to make sure I can keep the subscription to Epidemic Sound, but I thought it was a perfect intro that was very similar to Elder Scrolls. So hopefully you all like the intro music, and hopefully you all like the storytelling going forward. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure you're following on your favorite podcast platforms, or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to that. And yeah, I will see you all in episode 1 for the beginning of the journey of Telonius Darkmoon in Morrowind.